Hello everyone, and welcome to our presentation on ethical management. We are Team 10 and we will be discussing if four-year universities are unethical.
Business has been good for universities. For much of the post-war period, the received wisdom has been that college is the path for the middle class and success. Four-year universities have since morphed into a new role, to increase organizational revenue above all else, turning tertiary education into big business. Berman and Zingbot have found that since 1987, average tuition has risen by 183%. However, wages for early career professionals have risen by less than 3% in that same period. While America's expert class has been both enriched and empowered by the new role of universities, it has come at a substantial cost to those who wish to climb the social ladder. The U.S. Federal Reserve estimates that Americans had accumulated nearly $1.6 trillion in student loan debt as of 2017. That's roughly equal to the size of the Canadian economy. Lenders and universities have worked closely over the years to create a symbiotic relationship and maximize profits for both businesses. The U.S. Department of Education indicates that current student loan interest rates range from 4.53% for undergraduate loans to 6.08% and above for graduate and professional loans. Universities take advantage of a flawed financial aid system by increasing their fees, which end up benefiting staff and faculty more than students. Considering this new role, we look at whether or not four-year universities conduct themselves in an ethical manner when it comes to the interests of students, athletes, and part-time faculty.
Never in history has a university degree been more necessary, more expensive, and worth less than it is today. Those of us who attend university do so because we've been told that it sends a strong signal to employers that we're worth hiring, or that it's the path to the middle class, and because social stigma and substantial financial losses are associated with non-attendance. It's probably unsurprising that more of us are attending than ever before. According to the census, in the 1940s, less than 5% of the American population attended college. Today, that number is 1/3. This has diluted the value of a degree. After all, if everyone's getting one, what's it worth? But not all of us will graduate. According to the National Center for Education Statistics, only 60% of students graduate from college. And to make matters worse, those demographics that stand to benefit the most from the leg up that a university degree provides, Black and Hispanic students, graduate at 20 percentage points lower than white or Asian students, and take on average 6 months to a year longer to do it. Regardless of whether or not you graduate from university or how long it takes you, you're stuck with university debt. It cannot be discharged in bankruptcy. The average university student accumulates $36,000 in student loan debt despite earning an average of $47,000 a year after graduation. This can delay major life milestones like getting married, starting a family, or buying a house. Further, according to the NCES, 1/3 of graduates make less than the median wage, raising the question of whether or not they should have been encouraged to attend university in the first place. Student loan debt is neither benign nor sustainable. As stated before, student loan borrowers have accumulated $1.6 trillion in student loan debt. That's the size of the Canadian economy. Even scarier is the fact that 11.5% are either 90 days late on their payments or in default, according to Forbes. Universities have boomed. Students have unequivocally been harmed.
Ever since the term student-athlete was coined in the 1950s, there has been significant controversy surrounding these student-athletes prioritizing sports over academics, and with millions of dollars of revenue generated without fairly compensating the students responsible for bringing the financial success. Economists estimate that high-profile athletes who are later drafted to the NFL or NBA produce from $500,000 to $1 million in annual revenues for their school. Obviously, the schools are benefited by recruiting and keeping these top-tier athletes. Lawsuits have also been filed by former scholarship athletes based on the claim that the NCAA usurped their names, images, and likeness without their permission or compensation to them. Athletes, however, argue that they are owed compensation in addition to scholarships, as vast amounts of revenue are made from the sale of merchandise and from endorsements from advertisers and sponsors. To fairly compensate student athletes, there needs to be an alternative to giving out no names, images, and likeness income, and further exploration of wage compensation. A response to the notion that colleges exploit students is that colleges offer genuine educational opportunities and are thus not engaged in exploitation. However, most student athletes are not drafted to a professional team, and they're left to fall back on a degree with little or no value. It can then be argued that some universities take advantage of their athletes in the chase for financial gains, while tolerating low graduation rates and degrees with low earning potential. Finally, college sports coaches also receive hefty salaries that are often among the highest public salaries in each state. Division I football coaches have seen a dramatic increase in base salary in recent years as college football popularity has risen exponentially. Also, a coach's workers or student athletes are short-term and are only paid based upon NCAA regulations, which is limited to scholarships and housing. Year after year, college coaches therefore see continual increases in salary, while there is no correlative compensation for the student athletes that are responsible for revenue generation.
Especially valuable to universities for the inexpensive labor they provide are graduate students. Aside from being full-time students, graduate students are often employed to teach undergraduate classes and perform research that is critical for securing valuable grants, attracting tuition-paying undergraduates, and maintaining the university's prestige. For the hours of effort they invest on behalf of the university, graduate students are hardly paid minimum wage. In 2019, the average graduate student earned just $27,000 for a year of teaching, while the average salary for a professor was over $104,000. Universities admit graduate students in large numbers as they seek to capitalize on this profitable arrangement. International graduate students in particular are exploited by universities looking to cash in on the high tuition the students pay and their willingness to labor for minimal compensation. It is no surprise that international students make up an increasingly large percentage of all graduate students. According to The Economist, in 1966, just 23% of science and engineering PhDs were awarded to students born outside of the United States. By 2006, that proportion had increased to 48%. What universities aren't mentioning is that only a portion of the large number of graduate students admitted to programs go on to receive their degree. Discouragingly, only 57% of doctoral students have a PhD 10 years from their first date of enrollment. Despite the strenuous work and study conditions, graduate students often do not reap sufficiently compensatory advantages. For PhDs specifically, the effort rarely pays financial dividends. Over all subjects, a PhD commands only a 3% premium in financial compensation over a master's degree, while also facing rather dismal employment opportunities. Over 100,000 doctoral degrees were awarded in the United States from 2005 to 2009, while in the same time frame, just 16,000 new professorships were granted. These statistics illustrate that more often than not, the majority of benefit of a graduate degree is directed back to the university rather than the student.
Part-time faculty, or adjunct professors, are subjected like students and athletes to unethical treatment from universities. Adjunct professors often lack access to job security, health benefits, and fair pay. Despite the stark contrast in their pay and benefits to tenured professors, universities charge students the same tuition regardless of their adjunct or tenured status. Adjunct professors make significantly less than their tenured counterparts. A study found that 31% of these professionals met poverty guidelines, and a quarter of them were in households reliant on a form of government assistance. These professionals do not typically qualify for health benefits, paid time off, or other benefits offered to tenured positions. Rather than hire several full-time faculty positions, universities use adjunct professors to keep costs down, offering lower pay and fewer benefits. Often, adjunct professors must take multiple positions from different institutions to make ends meet. A congressional study indicated that 89% of adjunct professors were forced to take multiple positions to get by. This means that an adjunct professor wants a full-time position, but are forced to take multiple courses at multiple institutions to earn a sustainable wage. A university could choose not to renew their contract at any semester, which makes it difficult for an adjunct professor to speak up about the treatment they endure. If the pay and benefits are significantly different, are tenured professors more effective instructors? A study conducted by Northwestern found that courses taught by adjunct professors actually had higher grades and greater willingness from students to continue taking courses in that subject. Universities unethically utilize their labor, profiting from the same tuition rates, tenured and adjunct positions. In the end, their exploitation of adjunct professors is just another example of their unethical, for-profit behavior towards vulnerable groups.
In conclusion, we ask the moral problem. Is it right to extract high tuition rates without providing advertised value and neglecting to compensate adjunct professors and athletes appropriately? Universities have abandoned their previous role to impart wisdom and professional skills, which allowed their degrees holder to gain social and economic mobility. Their unethical behavior benefits leaders and tenured employees, but ignores the rights of students, athletes, and adjunct professors. It is the university's ethical duty to provide the value to students they claim to offer, and compensate athletes, graduate students, and adjunct professors fairly. Universities must work towards building career-specific skills and abilities rather than printing degrees with minimal job preparations. Moving forward, universities must work to create balance sheets that do not require tuition rates to continue to far outpace wages. Only when universities take responsibility for the harm they create and acknowledge their unethical conduct will they be able to move forward to rectify the problem.